We're here. Just giving you a minute to get settled and get your vibe going. You're here with ESP Speaks. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And we have an amazing show for you. So call a friend, get a glass of wine, get a cup of coffee, get some bubbly water. But do tune in, start a watch party, and hang out with us. We got something really special for you tonight. We are here. What a joyous Saturday. I can't tell you how full I am because it's something so special tonight. Yeah. I'm just a little head here. Rocky. Can we bring that just a little down? Just a touch. Beautiful, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, okay. Yes. Bring you back to the sounds of the motherland. Get us prepared. Come on, start your watch parties. Call a friend. Come on and settle in with us. Stay a little time with ESP Speaks. I got something really special for y'all tonight. You're almost there at your watch party. Gonna get started in a minute. Wow. Good evening. Good evening. What an amazing day. What a crazy week. And what a special show I have for you. It seems like 2020 has gone on for 20 years. I'm done. I'm really just over 2020. There's so many things happening. I mean, we have a new vice president. to be, hopefully, if we do the right thing and get out and vote. Uh, the clown is kind of playing with the mail, telling y'all that you can't get your vote in by the mail-in ballots. But you know what? Remember, your ancestors fought for you to be able to have this right. So do what you need to do. I'm wearing a hazmat suit and I'm getting out to those polls and I'm going to vote in person. But that's just me. Whatever you do, whether it be mail-in or whether it be being there in person, just make sure you do something. Then we have the COVID thing. I'm just kind of going through 2020, warming up the conversation here, making sure our tech crew has everything in line because we got a hell of a show for you tonight. What else is going on? Dr. Fauci. And on a show that we did last night, which was the real discussion with Rock Logic, Gary D, ESP, and Robin, we did our show on de Blasio and New York City. So, yes, there's a lot going on. But you know what? With all the craziness going on, I have something so special for you tonight. The person that I'm going to be introducing in a moment is a personality that makes all of those things that I just described to you kind of worth being around for, because he is a personality that gives us hope. He is a personality that has brought a lot of us through some major circumstances, and he is the one who's given us hope to go on. But I'm going to get to him. I want to get a couple of things out of the way before we really get into who the guest is tonight. So our show is normally an hour long, but I have a feeling that this is going to run longer than normally possible, because it's a lucky thing we own the network. Because this man that I have on with me tonight, calls have already started coming in for him since this morning. There are people in other time zones who have actually thought they missed the show and called our number to make sure that they didn't, or make sure that they had a space to be on to be able to talk to him. So we've got, as I keep saying, a really big show. But let me handle the business before I really sink into him, because once I turn over the mic, I'm not taking it back. If you cannot be here the entire show, I'm getting a feedback. What is that from Rocky? If you cannot be here the entire show, we do exist on several platforms. We're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, which you're on right now, and Instagram. The number that you'll be calling in tonight, if it's not scrolling for you or you can't see it, it will be, and we'll say it before we open up the phone lines again, 908-242-6234. I want to tell you a little bit about the network that you're watching. You are watching ESP Speaks on Boardwalk Global Media Corp. Boardwalk Global Media has a mega block of shows that start up on Friday night at 6 p.m. with the Raw Perspective with Uncle Lays, that rolls into a 7 p.m. show called The Real Discussion with Gary D, Rock Logic, ESP, and Robin. Then on Saturday morning, 10 a.m., you have the Fresh Start Focus, which is on WDBR iHeartRadio. At 6 p.m., you have ESP Speaks, which you're on right now. And on 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, we do the Sunday morning inspirational with Uncle Lays. That's at 7 a.m. Zoom to Facebook. And at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, we also do Pastor Leo and Pastor Dorothy at www.ihpfwc.org. That's at the IHP Church, which is in His Presence Church, at ihpfwc.org. And we'll have all of these things posted to the website for you to see as well. Then at 4 p.m. on Sunday, we have our political show with Rock Logic, Sandrea Coleman, and Stan Morris, One Nightja. That's when we deal with the problems of the city and how to resolve them and how we're going to move forward to get everything done. And that is the Board Global Media mega block for the weekend. Okay, so now let's peel back. On Instagram, we are at ESP Real Talk. On Facebook, we're at ESP Speaks on the fan page. Please click and like. And on YouTube, we're at ESP Speaks. Please click the bell and subscribe. All right, now that we've gotten the business out of the way, I would like to, and I'm going to take my time with this introduction, because this brother, this king, this mentor, he brings calm, he brings a peace, he brings a sense of activism and a sense of community. All of these things he has brought to so many people, and he is such an amazing, amazing entity. And I'm going to break away from the scripting for one moment, because he has had people call in. As I said, from 9 o'clock this morning, several people have called from several different time zones to make sure that they get an opportunity to speak with him. Now, when I was growing up, he was always special. He was very close with my family. My family was close with his family. I can't remember a day not knowing him. And if I get emotional, it's because this man really is so close to my heart and has held my hand through so many things. Now, I thought that, as we selfishly do, when we have entities like this, we're thankful to the universe and thankful to God that he's in our lives, but we only think that he belongs to us. We only think that he does these things for us. And selfishly, I thought I was the only one who had this type of relationship with him until I did this show. The minute I put up the flyer, I got text after call, after note, after letter. And I would say within the last 4 days, easily, there have been over 30 people on this side of the globe that have contacted me directly and said, "Are you serious? It's Andrew?" Yes, it's Andrew. Now I want all of you to be able to call in and speak with him, and I will give you as much time as you need to connect with him. He is on for a purpose to finish a series that we were doing about African American history, our transition into the United States, how we played a role. We've been putting all of these pieces together over the last couple of weeks with other speakers and other professors, but I felt the most poignant, the most powerful had to end the series with, he's gonna kill me if I say it wrong, Sekou, Molefi, Baako. You know him as Andrew Jackson. Now, he is the direct emeritus of the Queens Langston Hughes Library Community Cultural Center. He's a member of the Board of Trustees from Queens Public Library. He's a past president of the Black Caucus of American Library Association, adjunct professor at York College, history, philosophy, anthropology, the head of Black studies of the program, degreed in business administration since 1990, an adjunct professor at Queens College. It just goes on. Graduate School of Library and Informational Science, has a master's degree in library science since 1996. Like, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I'm just going to open up to it. Let me get a round of applause for Andrew Jackson. Now, where is he at? What do we got going on here? Andrew. Do we have him?
I'm here.
Okay, so I'm getting a lot of reverb here.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
That's me. All right.
Greetings.
I tried to get all of that in, and I kind of, did I forget anything? You're so amazing.
I'm just a regular brother.
And that's what makes you so beautiful, because with all of that accolade, you always just were Andrew. You had flocks of children that you taught and you saved. And I hope a couple of them actually come on the line tonight, because Andrew, there are people who've called me and said, you know what, if he wasn't in my life at that time, I would have killed myself. My family was going through a divorce, and he acted as a father for me. He saved the whole neighborhood. He did so many things. He gave us a place to go. He developed a library program for after school study where we were all gathered. You know what? Let me let you come on and say howdy, Mr. Jackson. I'm gonna shut up now. You go ahead.
Greetings, family. Greetings, community. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be sitting across the screen with my sister Esther and all of the people from what I'm hearing around the country. It's good to see my family again, and good to be part of my family again. And all of those things that Esther's saying, you need to realize that I'm only fulfilling the responsibility that I was given by my parents, by the community when they hired me back in 1980 to be the assistant director at Langston Hughes Library, and when they allowed me to become the permanent director in 1981, January 1981, I'm just fulfilling a responsibility that was passed down to me.
Well, while you were speaking, we actually had a caller. Did we take the call? Andrew?
Yes.
I have a flock of questions that I wanted to ask you, but you know what? We'll get to that. Caller, if you can dial back in, I want some of these people who have been calling you all day to connect to you. The information that we're going to disperse and you and I have discussed in this interview, that's not going to change. I want anybody, and I'm speaking to the audience right now, anybody who contacted us earlier, and all of those people who called from overseas in California, there you go. Are we calling them back? Is that what it is? We're going to let you talk to your people, because obviously they want to reach out to you. So we're going to let them do that first. We'll get to everything else.
I lost audio.
Okay, so caller, once again, anyone who has tried to call us during the course of the day, and the person who just tried to call us, give us a buzz back. If you can't get them, it's okay. We'll push forward.
This is the day that the Lord has made.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. Because that last person who called in while you were speaking, we were trying to get back, but it's okay. Huh?
I was actually calling California.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, this is ESP Speaks. You had called us earlier in the day today to speak with Andrew Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm calling for the program.
Well, you are live on that program right now, and Andrew Jackson is listening to the sound of your voice. Would you like to tell us who you are?
Yes, it keeps going in and out, but it's on right now.
What happened?
A couple of people, Carol, trying to reach you as well. And also, I'm calling the number, and also 15 is trying to get in too.
Okay, well, he's listening to you right now, so let him know who you are.
Let him know who I am?
Yes, he's on the line.
Okay, I'm Alex Powell, but I came mainly to listen, not to speak.
Andrew, do you know who that is?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Good to hear your voice. Where are you?
I'm at home.
Okay.
I'm at home.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
everybody's trying to reach you guys.
You never know.
Yes, we see that. All right.
are you full to capacity? Is that why they're having trouble getting in, or it's the technical difficulty?
Well, the show just started, so we figured let's call you back because we spoke to you earlier today, and we have. Hold on for a second. We might have a party line now.
My name is William
Audio
Clark.
went out again.
Accept.
Yes, accept that. My brother, my brother, my brother.
Yes, see, what's up?
What's up? Yes, he's on the line. William, how are you? What's going on?
Urge everybody.
I'm
Got
sitting here
you.
with Denise now.
Okay, so William, I know that you have written to me and told me that Andrew was a very important entity in your life as well. Where is Denise?
Right next to me.
All right, put her on because he's right here. She can talk to him.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I was really looking forward to the podcast today.
All right.
I had to make sure I kept it on the calendar and everything.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Well, Denise, William had told me all about the connection, and I wanted to make sure you guys get in because the way people were calling in, I was afraid that everybody wasn't going to get in. So William went in right up front. But we're going to get the show started. We want to make sure that everybody who wanted to talk to him, because like I said, people have been calling him all day, and we're at the beginning of the show. So we figured we'd get it out of the way, and then people can call in again later if they want.
Okay. Thank you. And it's good seeing you, Andrew.
You too. You too. I hope to see you face to face soon.
Are you watching the show?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so we're going to actually get started, but like I said, we want to get the special people in.
Okay, go do what you gotta do, sis.
All right,
We're
then.
watching. All right, Andrew, take care, bro.
All right, brother. Be well.
All right.
And
Peace.
okay, we're line is clear. It's just him.
No, they gotta hang up. Now it's
Okay, and this is again the power of this energy. So now, Andrew, coming back to why we're actually on the show here. We, as I said before, have been doing a series where we've been speaking about Black history, where we've come from, understanding where we're coming from, how it's affected us up until this point. Okay, well, who's hanging up?
not him.
Okay, well, there you go. As a Black educator and a community leader, what do you view as the most significant challenge of the time that we're in right now?
I see the most difficult challenge for our people, period, not just this time, but period, is unity. That we are a divided community based on culture, based on religion, based on politics, based on beliefs, based on geographic locations. We are divided, and that has started since we left the continent. As enslaved Africans, they purposely did that to us, and it has continued today. We can't achieve anything we want to achieve until we come together as a Black African community. And I mean from the continent, from the Caribbean, from Central South America, from south of Washington, D.C., from north of Washington, D.C., around the cities. We need to come together as a community. And if we can't do that, we'll never achieve anything.
Do you have a plan for that? Is there a thought process to that we can execute?
I think there've been a lot of plans. I don't have a specific plan, but I think the first plan is that we have to educate ourselves in who we are. We have to go back to our roots and what does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be African? What does it mean to be African American, Caribbean American, whatever you want to call? What does it mean? And how are you connected to all the other parts of our diaspora? We are one people,
Andrew?
we're one culture, but we're divided. Yes.
I'm sorry, but we got to take the California calls. I'm
Audio keeps
taking.
going in and out.
I know you're in a rhythm. Go ahead with the California call.
Hello?
Yes.
You're on ESP Speaks?
Yes.
Hi.
Audio keeps going in and out.
Oh, who's this?
That was the California call, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, wait, there. Hello?
hello.
Hello. Yes, we have you. You're on ESP Speaks.
I don't hear anybody.
You are on ESP Speaks.
You don't hear anything?
All right. Sorry, California. We're gonna let that call go because we're not getting anything from you.
I
All right,
just
because
lost
I
you
don't
on my
want to keep
phone.
breaking his rhythm. All right, so we took a couple. Let's hold off on the calls for. Okay.
No, I'm calling Andrew.
So
Hello?
we lost
I'm-
Andrew.
Andrew?
Oh, this is Wood.
Okay, it's Andrew calling back
Who?
in.
This is William.
Okay, no, that's not
No,
William.
we don't need William. Hold
And
on.
Call from
Okay, it's Andrew calling back in.
there you go.
Dept.
That's who we want.
I'm back.
I'm back.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yes,
All right.
we
I'm
missed
back.
you.
Modern
So,
technology.
ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hold off on the calls because I want Andrew to finish his thoughts. And I promise I will give more than enough time for everyone to call in. All right. So, Andrew, we left off at the executing the plan.
I was saying that there are a lot of different plans depending on who the educator is, who the philosopher is, etc. But I think the major thing is that we have to educate ourselves about who we are and understand our history, our culture, the connectedness we have within the diaspora around the world as African people and Black people. But until we do that, we can't move forward because we're so divided from each other.
Exactly. Exactly. I support that 100%. So let me ask you this. With regard to connecting to our African heritage and figuring out actually who we are, because that's what the journey is about, what do you think about the DNA testing that they're doing, like the 23andMe's and the African what's I can't remember what the blood test is for the African
It's the genealogical search to find out where your origins come from. I think it's important for us to do that because we, for example, if you ask almost anybody, any Black person, where are you from? They're going to say, I'm from Harlem, I'm from Corona, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from Chicago. But that's where you live now. But when you go back to your roots and who you are, you have to trace your genealogy back to your homeland, where your ancestors came from. Yes, my ancestors came from Mississippi, but that's not where my ancestry starts. My ancestry starts on the African continent. And
Exactly.
we have to accept and celebrate the fact that we are African people. Every other culture celebrates who they are except Black people. They only celebrate the part that they've been told, but our ancestry goes back to the African continent. So when I did my genealogical research for my family, I found out my mother's side of the family comes from Cameroon. My father's side of the family comes from Gabon, both on West African coast. That gives me a sense of ownership of who I am as an African male. I celebrate the fact that what my parents went through in Mississippi and why they left Mississippi and came to New York so that the Jackson family could be better and not have to go through some of the hardships my father did. But I still need to know where my ancestors came from, and they came from the African continent. All of us need to celebrate that, and that's part of that unity thing, is that we do not celebrate who we are as African people. We want to be everything else, but we don't want to be African, and that's still a problem. This goes back to the 1960s, 50s, and 60s.
That's very poignant. So you do recommend that we actually do the testing and go back once we find out, just to see what it's like or what it was like.
Most definitely. Most people, I have this discussion with my students in my Black history class also. When we go on vacations, we go everywhere else. Most of us, we go everywhere else, but we don't go back to the African continent. Every other culture, when they want to go celebrate their family, they go back home. They go back to France, they go back to Germany, they go back to Switzerland, they go back to Africa, Great Britain, whatever it is. only African people are the only ones that don't go back to Africa. We go to the Caribbean, we go to Mexico, we go to Central South America, we go to Hawaii, we go to Europe. We don't go back to Africa. And the thing about going back to Africa is you're going to find out that Africa is so different than all those commercials you see on TV with the little kids with flies on their face and tears in their eyes and no food. That's not all of Africa. And Africa is so different. With the 52 different countries, every country is different. Languages, cultures, practices, the people. And you will be welcome going back home. The first time I went to Ghana, one of the things that I remembered most of the first trip back to Ghana, coming out the airport and the guys drumming there saying, Akwaba, welcome home. I felt at home from that point on. I never felt like I was in danger, never felt out of sorts. I was home.
And it's actually a very beautiful place. I lived in Lagos for several years. It's an amazing place.
Yeah.
Yes, so I do agree that we should actually all go back. So let me ask you this question. Is it important for Black people to learn about their tribal practices, or at least try to adopt their tribal practices, even though they don't know what tribe they are, or even when they find out, let's say they do the DNA testing and they find out what tribe they belong to, do you think that they should be investigating the tribal practices that were taken away from them and becoming a part of that?
I think that should be part of the journey. You can't appreciate the practices, the norms, the mores of where you come from until you know where you come from and appreciate the fact that you're African. So it happens in stages, as steps. You have to appreciate and celebrate Africa first as homeland. You have to then want to know, where did my ancestors come from? And then from there, if you want to go into and become deeper into it, then you want to start finding out more of the languages, the practices, the mores, and the value systems that come out of that particular culture. But I think it's important that we do that. All other cultures know that. They know who they are. They celebrate it. We're the only ones that don't. So I think it's important.
Okay. Here's a big question for you, because you're a proponent of Kwanzaa. And that has been, over the years, I've watched you take that simple thought and expand it into these wonderful festivals, and you people clamor for you to come and do their Kwanzaa celebrations on a yearly basis. But a lot of Black people don't understand that this was an American created celebration.
Right.
In fact, in 1968, I believe 69, it was.
Yeah,
69. And you elaborate on that, because Dr.
Malana Karenga. Kwanzaa is a 7-day African-American cultural celebration. Some people say it's a holiday. You can't call it a holiday when it's 7 days. 7 days. 7 cultural days, celebration, where each day has that part of the value system called the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Umoja, unity. Kujichagulia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Kuumba, creativity. Nia, purpose. And Imani, faith. 7 days, beginning the 26th of December, ending on the 1st day of January, which means you're leading into the new year. Each day you celebrate a practice, and you celebrate it as a family, as a community. And the value system is not just worthwhile during that 7 days of the holiday season, what they call during the harvest season on the continent, but it's principles that you can practice all throughout your life, in the workplace, in the home, in the community. Those value systems are things that you can guide your life by. And I think that's why Kwanzaa is important.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that enough of us celebrate it?
No. I mean, it's practiced more and more each year. When I do Kwanzaa, and I've done Kwanzaa, I have 2 families that I interact with, the Rambert family and the Leslie family. I have done Kwanzaas for their families for over 30 years in their homes. And each year, new people come into their homes and sit through and learn about Kwanzaa, ask questions, and have the family feast, the Karamu feast, and celebrate. I love doing it because more and more people are introduced to what Kwanzaa is. A lot of us have misnomers. Oh, it's some of that Black stuff. Oh, yes, it's Black because we're Black. but it's our cultural celebration. Now, the two things you need to remember: it's non-political, it's non-religious, and it's non-heroic. So Dr. King's celebration is celebrating the hero of Dr. King. Christmas is the day before Kwanzaa. This is not a replacement for Christmas. It purposely begins the 26th of December. So it's not, you don't celebrate, you can come from any religion. You can be any political persuasion, and you can celebrate any heroes you want. It's a cultural celebration of our people based on African values. And the African values comes from the value systems that are found on the African continent. Dr. Malai Karenga created this concept as a form of, and the first principle again is unity, to bring our people together. I know components in Los Angeles that have Kwanzaa in July, because you can celebrate Kwanzaa in July and it's still Kwanzaa. It's still bringing the people together. It's harmony within the community and the family.
Okay. Andrew. Black economics.
Yeah, Black economics.
Or Sekou.
Or Sekou.
Black economics. Let's deal with the subject.
All right.
Go ahead.
When I saw that question, the first person I thought of was Dr. John Henry Clark. And John Henry Clark used to talk about the fact that one of the reasons that we are so still at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to political and economic power in this country is we don't own any major businesses. We don't have any major enterprises, any major institutions that we own that America has to come to us for. We're basically consumers. And until and this has been something that has been talked about since the 1950s. I remember on Saturday afternoons, there was a show, and I see the brother's face, I can't think of his name, used to come on every Saturday afternoon, and we talk about Black economics and talk about the things we need to do to start our own, and not only start our own business, develop our major businesses that people will come to us for, but also we need to support Black businesses. Too many of us do not support Black businesses. I had a conversation with somebody at the library one day, and he was saying that he felt that he was being overpriced for a job that he had with a Black vendor. And I would say, well, if I'm gonna get ripped off, or if I'm gonna have to pay more money, I'd rather pay more money to somebody in my own community than to pay somebody outside my community and the money leave our community. You look at your community. Every community has businesses in our community for people and cultures that are not part of the Black community. Where does that money go? It leaves the community. It goes out of the community. Where are all the Black businesses in our community that we support? And it's been proven that if we have Black businesses, Kawanza Kunjufu used to talk about this, if we had our own businesses and we hired our own young people in our own businesses, the money turns over and over and over. At this point, right now, money leaves our community. It may turn over once. It may. But primarily, when you have all these outside cultures in your community and you're paying them for their services, the money goes out of the community and it doesn't benefit the community. If you have Black businesses, the money stays in the community because you're hiring young people. People are doing the business in the community, services in the community, and they're going to spend that money back in the community until we become economically political, economically sound, and economically supporting our people and having our own major businesses and even the small businesses in our community. We have to support that if we're going to be. Every other culture does that. Every other culture does that but us. And when you talk about power, economic power, political power, it starts with unity in the community.
And this has been a thread that has gone through this series. With every conversation we have, those same words are spoken. So how do we educate, from your perspective as an educator, how are we collectively educating our people to move them forward to where you just put us verbally, to where we need to go?
These same discussions ought to be happening in all of the institutions that we have in the community. The Black church, the Black political organizations, the Black libraries, the libraries in your community should be hosting Black economic freedom programs. We need to start our own institutions And the focus of those institutions should be what it used to be back in the 60s and 70s about building and developing our community. The Black Panther Party back in the 60s and early 70s used to do that. There were Black Power organizations, there were Black schools, there were Black economic freedom programs. All of those things existed until the early 70s and they phased out. We need those things again because we have to be responsible for ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, you have a lot of things. I want to take you, I have several more questions, but I want to stop for a minute and take you towards the board because we're all engrossed in you, but there are so many things happening on this board. So let's take a look. Gary Delamoth says, and he's actually one of my co-hosts, talks about dividing and conquering is the plan. The more you divide the people, the easier it is to conquer them. Okay, that makes sense.
That's right.
Hi, Fennel. Thanks for stopping in. Allison Bailey, that's somebody you know. That's somebody from the Hearst as well.
Right.
Who else do we have here? We spoke to William earlier. Hi, Lori. Thanks for checking in. And you also had about 3 calls while we were going through this. William Clark, I'm back on Facebook. All right. All right. As I said, I just wanted to check in with the activity that was going on the board because sometimes they're asking questions and we're not looking. So I wanted to take the time to look and see. Okay. So now, swing back into what we were talking about with regard to the economics of the situation. Yes, you are correct. It's something that should be happening in all of our communities. Now, we grew up in a community. This is one of the interactions that I had with you in my growth period. We grew up in a community that the church was a big pillar of the community, and a lot of our activities happened around the church. Do you feel that the churches are failing the community at this stage of the game, the Black community? Are they failing us and not being those strong churches of the 60s and 70s and the 80s that we were used to?
I'm not sure if it's as much that the church is failing us as it is that the people have gravitated away from the church. Now the question is, why have they gravitated away from the church? There's still a major church following, yes, no doubt about that. But there's still, I can remember when we were growing up, the church was the center of the community for gathering, not only for Sunday, but Saturdays for your choir and for your youth programs, activities that generated out of the youth programs, interaction with other groups within the church, but there was always some activity. Today, basically, the church is only open for you on Sunday, and sometimes, if you're lucky, Saturday, maybe choir rehearsal on Thursday night. But the church needs to be more available and more part of the activities of the community today, like they used to be. The church has an important role, but my introduction to Black history came from my Sunday school class, not my school, not PS 127. It came from my teacher, the Sunday school teacher, talking about how the church, the history of the church, the purpose of the church, the fact that the civil rights movement emanated from the Black church, and the place that was the safest, as I've learned through studying Black sheep, one of the only places that was safe for Black people back in the day on the plantations, and even when we were free, was the Black church. That was the first place women were able to be part of the mainstream and be leaders and organize and create. The schools started there. The homework program started there. The health program started there. The social service program started there. The church was the spawning ground for all of the things that served our community. And we are part of the collective of what goes on in our community. All of those things need to be connected. It doesn't feel that way anymore. The other part of that's important, and that's why I always say that my first introduction to Black Studies was in Sunday school, is because we cannot hold the Board of Education responsible. I call the Board of Education responsible for teaching our children our history. That's our responsibility.
Okay,
Other
I'm going to
cul-
stop you there because I want you to say that one more time. Say it again.
It is not the Board of Education's responsibility to teach our children our history. That is our responsibility. Our children should go to school from kindergarten, first grade. They should go to school being proud of being African, being proud of being Black, knowing that they did not start as slaves, knowing that history did not begin in Europe, but it begins on the African continent, and that the earliest and most successful civilizations in history began on the African continent. Now, if you go to school with that kind of understanding and you go to school with that type of pride, then you are not sitting there thinking that you are, every time they talk about slavery, you want to duck under the seat. Or every time somebody talks about slavery, they look at you as if you're the product of a slave trade. We don't know that. And then we rely on the Board of Education to teach our children about our history. I have students I've been teaching Black studies now since 2006 or so. And every semester I talk about ancient African civilizations. And what's the first question students ask me? Why didn't we learn this in high school? It's not the power structure's responsibility to teach you who you are. It's not. Our educational system is a colonized educational system developed by Europeans. So it begins where Europeans want you to believe your history began. It begins on the continent. And that's why one of the things I sent you was a list of books that I recommend people read to become aware of who they are and start to celebrate their history and culture.
You have segued us right into the next thing. What is that list of books? Because I hear what you're saying and I fully understand what you're saying and I agree, but our people are not equipped. So where do they get the information to teach this younger generation that's coming up and have that sense of appreciation? Because they're not going to church like we used to go to church. The question was, did the church fail us? When actually the answer is we failed the church because we stopped going.
Yeah.
We got involved with the social media. We changed with the times. The church wasn't as important to these children as it was to our families growing up, because if we didn't get up and get dressed and go to church every Sunday morning, we was looking at a behind them.
Right.
We couldn't say no.
And we also, because we are the organization of the church, we are the body of the church that should be mandating that we have these tutorial programs, we have these history discussions, we incorporate history, not just one month of the year or one Sunday of the year in February, but all throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I've also come to realize is that this information is no longer a secret. There was a time when you couldn't find the books. You could only go to the Black bookstore in Harlem, but online, you can find all of this material. You go to your public library. One of the most rewarding pleasures that I had being the director at Langston Hughes Library for 36 years, and the reason I never left, is because that library center was started by the residents of the community, because there were no libraries in Queens County that had books, programs, and services that reflected the Black experience. So our community, they didn't ask. They demanded Queens Library open up a library on Northern Boulevard, right in the heart of the community, and the focus of that collection and that programs and services would be about the Black experience for Queens County. The community ran Langston Hughes Community Library and Culture Center, operated under the Library Action Committee for 18 years, until as a special project of Queens Library, until it was so successful that the state mandated that they had to merge it into the system and make it a full branch of the Queens Library system.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most successful community-based library program in the country. The original staff, Tyrone Bryant and the staff who opened up that library from 1969 to 1976, were pirated by the Broward County Library System in Broward County, Florida, Fort Lauderdale. There are 5 local libraries in Fort Lauderdale that are modeled after Langston Hughes Library and Cultural Center. That's history. So when the thing that we would do, we started bringing, the book collection was only Black books. And we started even to the elementaries of circulating comic books Black Heritage comic books to get people to read. Attract the non-reader, attract the non-library user, and transform them into readers and library users. And people, some of the people you're talking about that around the country today came to Langston Hughes Library because it introduced them to the history and culture through books, through programs, through cultural arts programs, through activities, through celebrations, so that they were able to grow and be nurtured in a Black environment, celebrating themselves and teaching them who they were. And one of the things I told them, don't keep this information to yourself, tell everybody. It's not a secret, tell everybody.
You always said that.
That's part of that concept of what unity is about.
I'm going to have you release that list in a moment, because I know you have it nearby. But I also want to ask you something that you told me years ago, and I want to make sure I heard correctly or remember correctly. The original location, because Langston Hughes Library is no longer located in its original location. A couple of years ago, you guys moved to 100th Street from 103rd.
Right.
That original location, what connection did it have to the Black Panthers?
The original building that we were located in between 102nd and 103rd Street was a former Woolworth department store. And that's why we kept those big Woolworth department store windows, and it still looked like a storefront there. The Black Panther Party was across the street. And the Black Panther Party was part of that voice that demanded that the first director at Langston Hughes be a male and not a female. Helen Marshall, the most renowned politician in Queens, who started in the community working on Northern Boulevard. She was the assistant director. She accepted the role of assistant director and agreed that a male should be the first director because it needed to be a role model for reading and a role model for using libraries. And Tyrone Bryant created that blueprint that I built on after I became director. But that was the connection. The Black Panther Party was part of that structure that fought for, picketed, went to jail for, and fought for the development of Langston Hughes Library and access to that building, because it was a warehouse for toys, and it had no purpose in the community at all. And they told the people, you got this business in our neighborhood. You don't hire anybody, you don't pay anybody, you don't provide any services for our community. We want this building. And when they realized that they weren't just talking to some roughneck radicals on the boulevard, but they were talking to the Caroni Stelmers community, they ended the lease, and that lease was given to the Queens Library for the Library Action Committee, and we were in that building for 30 years before we expanded and built the new library that I'm somewhat responsible for on 100th Street and Northern Boulevard.
And for those of you who are in New York, you should actually come and take a look at that library. It's really an amazing place to be. And they did a wonderful job when constructing that. It's 100. Andrew, give us that address again, please.
100-01 Northern Boulevard, right on the corner of 101st and Northern Boulevard. And one of the things about that a lot of people don't know, when we were going through the proposals for the architects to design Langston Hughes Library, the original proposals that we received, I think there was something like 12 of them, no Black businesses, no minority-owned businesses. I refused to even accept them. I put them back in the package. I took them back to Claire Schulman. I took them back to the planning board and said, I am not even going to even consider looking at proposals to build a Black library if we don't have it's not open to Black architects to build it. Claire Schulman agreed, planning board agreed. They sent it back to the city. The second responses we got Black-owned businesses, we got women-owned businesses, we got merger businesses, and we selected two Black architectural firms, Garrison McNeil and Associates, which is a Black architectural firm in Harlem, and Davis Brody Bond, which is a major big architecture firm in Lower Manhattan. It was the first merged architectural firm hired by the city. They designed our building. It was designed by Black architects. It was built by as many people as we could get to be part of the construction process through the city of New York. The end result is a library that is Afrocentric in its concept and its design. And beautiful.
Wow. Yes, it is. It's an amazing property. It's an amazing amazing, wonderful place to be. And everyone, once again, you should come and take a look at it because a lot of work went into it, and it's a wonderful resource
Yeah,
for your children as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So Andrew,
Well,
Professor,
yeah.
let's hear some of the titles of those books because I would really like to get them up for our listeners
Well, let's
that
let,
you think.
let me start at the books behind me. No, I'm only kidding because there are so many books. But I would say if you're looking at modern times and you're looking at the hero of our civil rights movement who we just lost, he created a 3-part graphic novel series called March 1, 2, and 3. I would start there because one, he purposely put the civil rights movement in the form of graphic novels so it would appeal to non-readers, people in middle school and high school, and not just hard copy books that were just designed for college students. Um, I would recommend a book called Heart and Soul: A Story of America and African Americans by Kadir Nelson. Excellent work. When that book first came out, I met Kadir. We celebrated the book when it was released at the American Library Association. That Kwanzaa, I gave everybody I knew copies of that book as their Kwanzaa gift.
Mhm.
Let's see. There's another book that deals with the issues today of the Black Lives Matter movement called When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Colors and Asha Bendeli. I think that's important for you to read. Of course, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates is something that young people need to read and to get a sense of what it is today being Black in America and why the Black Lives Matter movement was put forward. Um, I look at another one that is called Breathe, A Letter to My Sons by Imani Perry. She's writing the book. We met her at the Black Caucus conference last year. That book is a letter to her son that she has to take a breath every time he leaves the home because of the things that might happen to him just by walking out the front door of his home. So I think that's what I call light reading about Black history. But when you're talking about getting in touch with your history and culture, there's a series of books. First, you got to look at The Souls of Black Folk by W.B. Du Bois. I would say The Introduction to African Civilizations by John G. Jackson. Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett. From Slavery to Freedom, the book I use as a textbook for my Black History class by John Hope Franklin and Evelyn Higginbotham. Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America, Manning Marable, that talks about Black economics. You're gonna get a sense of the two concepts that Martin Luther King talked about one, Malcolm X talked about one, Marcus Garvey talked about it all. There's a book called Martin and Malcolm and America by John H. Cone that talks about the difference between Martin Luther King's The American Dream and Malcolm X's concept of the American Nightmare. And how you can, that book really set a tone for me in terms of learning about the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement. There's another book that I always highly recommend by John Henry Clark, or Notes for an African World Revolution, Africans at the Crossroads. And there is I use this book extensively because of a chapter he has entitled Image and Mind Control in the African World. He talks about his definition of history. He talks about it, he says, we need to ask some questions about the Black hero who was always a hustler or a pimp or always doing somebody in. History is a clock that tells the people the historic time of day. It is a compass people use to locate themselves on the map of human geography. A people's history tells the people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are, but more importantly, a proper understanding of history tells the people what they still must be and where they still must go. That is why we need to learn about our history. We can't understand this whole struggle for liberation and freedom in America if we don't understand how we got to where we are.
How we got there.
We didn't start as slaves. We were enslaved. There's a difference. I have a whole conversation with my students. There's a difference between being a slave and being enslaved. We were free people who were enslaved and put into a free economic system that benefited America, Americans, but it was the harmful thing to African people because we benefited nothing from slavery over the 150 years that it existed in this country.
So all of the educators that have been a part of this series, and I thank you so much for that listing of books for us. There are two questions that I have with regard. Are they for us? And what selection of books are for others? Because with all that has come up with the racial disturbance and the imbalance that we've been thrown back into full force, I mean, racism was always there, but right now it's in our face, cell phone ready. There are so many people who are willing to align with us in their own way that are people that are not of color, who are interested in stepping up. What publications do you recommend for them? Because my white friends ask me all the time, and I don't feel I'm in a position to deal with that right now. It has to be dealt with, but I'm more busy dealing with our people and especially our children, getting them through this process and equipping them with the information that they need to go forward. Right. Because let's be honest, the kids of this day are not familiar with the racism that we grew up with. You and I grew up in the 60s, right, where it was right there. We were marching. We were being chased by dogs. With water hoses, with the whole 9 yards was there. So I'm really interested in getting our kids equipped for what they're dealing with, which rolls me right into the next thing. George Floyd. I'm gonna say that and leave it there. Go.
Okay. Let me say this. It is just as important for anybody who wants to support our struggle for liberation. And I see freedom and liberation different. Somebody gives you your freedom, you liberate yourself. So I'm talking about liberation. It is just as important for all of those people that are non-Black who want to be part of the struggle. They should read these books as well, because once they read these books, they'll understand who we are and why our movement is about liberation. It is important that our people, first thing, we have to read. Our people don't want to read. Students, they used to come to the library. Some of the young people that grew up in our library, they came there as non-readers. And we introduced them to reading as a joy and a privilege. Libraries as a privilege, not automatic, because if it was automatic, you wouldn't have needed a Langston Hughes library. If education were automatic, you wouldn't need Black studies in the curriculum. So we need to read not only reading is fundamental, reading opens the doors to possibilities and opportunities that you don't have. You can get a PhD in this country, but if you don't take Black studies in your curriculum, you come out just as miseducated as you did when you first got as you first entered as a freshman. That's why Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro, is so important. If we go get an education, become doctors and lawyers and all these things that we do, but you don't know anything about who you are, you're miseducated. Mm-hmm. So we have to read. Okay. Reading is necessary.
I agreed. Okay, so George Floyd.
I didn't get as upset about George Floyd as I got about Eleanor Bumpurs back in the 70s. George Floyd is just an extension of all of these deaths that we keep hearing about over and over and over again. I got pissed off. I got angry in the 1983 when the Eleanor Bumpurs was a senior citizen, weighed something like 300 pounds, was being evicted from her apartment in Harlem, in the Bronx. And the police stormed her apartment to evict her. She pulled a knife to defend herself. Now the police have shields, they got helmets, they got goggles, they got gloves, they had batons. They blew her away, a 300-pound woman who could hardly walk. They blew her away with shotguns. Mm-hmm. And it was just reported. It was reported just like all the other reportings over the centuries of Black people being killed. Mm-hmm. So when this happened to George Floyd, what I was finally seeing was America has gotten to a point where they said this is not just another incident. This cannot continue to exist. America finally got fed up. Now the question is, where is it going to lead? If we go back, if we come together next year and we're still talking about it and nothing has happened from it, then it was just another death that was a waste. Because this is at some point, you know, this type of police brutality is the same exact reason why the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense organized itself in 1968 in Oakland, California. So this is not new. I mean, look at if you look at the list. Look at the list of people who've been killed by police: men, women, and children. This is
You're absolutely right. It's not new. It's just being filmed. That's
right.
all.
And this is an extension from what happened during slavery days. You had no rights then. I have a discussion to my students about what is freedom. How do you call yourself free when you go into a store? I've been in the store and had a counterfeit bill. I didn't know it was counterfeit. But if you go into a store, and I've been stopped by the police. I've been stopped by the police in my neighborhood. I've been stopped by the police in my car. I've been stopped by the police walking and followed in stores and all of that. This is America. This is America. This is part of the concept of the history of this country. The reminder is the Constitution of the United States was not written for Black people. It was written for rich white males. It was written for rich white men, not even women. The Black people in this country don't get their rights until the first Article 1, Section 1, Article 1, Section 9, Article 4, Section 2. Slavery is a legal institution. Legal institution. Slavery, Black people are not meant to be citizens, and it is legal to receive private property. We were considered private property.
Right, we were chattel. That's it.
If there's something that the audience wants to read and look at in terms of understanding the difference for us as Black people in this country, go back to 1857 Dred Scott case. Dred Scott was a slave and his wife. They were leaving us. He was the slave of a military physician. The physician was going from a slave state to a free state. Dred Scott figured, well, we're in the free state. I should be free. He petitioned the courts for his freedom. The court said, you cannot petition the courts because you're not a citizen of the United States. You're private property. Again. Exactly. Second thing, the Constitution never intended for Blacks to be part of the body politic. You were never intended to be a citizen, not by the Constitution. And thirdly, this sentence comes out by the Supreme Court Justice Tully in 1857. He said, in quotes, Blacks have no rights that whites are bound to respect. When I saw that in my history lesson, that answers all of the questions about why we're still being mistreated and brutalized in this country. We were never intended to be citizens, and whites have no rights that whites are bound to respect.
That's it. And the whole penal system, the whole policing system is built on that thought process. So now, Andrew, here's the question for you. With these things in play, as an educator, who we're looking at a whole nother generation of children being raised on the history that wraps up our history inside of it and buries it. How do we rewrite these books? How do we teach them on their level? Should we be writing educational books? Yes, in the educational system.
First, parents have to read also. It can't be just the children reading, the parents have to read also. And the parents should sit down with their children as part of because that's one of the things we've lost is the family structure. Our growing up, we had Sunday dinner. We had family dinner. The family sat down, they ate together, they talked about what was going on, they communicated with each other. Now we're in so many different schedules that we text to each other. We don't even talk to each other, we text each other. We pass each other in the night. We pass each other in the day and night. But we need to come back as a family. That's another reason why the Black church ought to have Black history classes as part of their programming. the library for, maybe, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years, we had free Black history classes at Langston Hughes. There should be classes, places in our community where we can go. Programs at our libraries, whether you live in a white community or Black community, the library is there to serve everybody. You should be demanding that you have lectures that come on, that discuss issues of Black history at the library. So you can have authors come in, you can have professors come in, you can have theologians come in, you can have philosophers come in and talk about issues. And there are people who are writing books. So the mechanisms are there. We have to demand these services in our community, just like we did at Langston Hughes Library. That's why Langston Hughes was so important to so many people. We had a homework program. We started the homework program.
Okay, I'm gonna have to interrupt you there.
I get excited, man. I get frustrated.
No. And I love your excitement, but I need you to understand something. For the last 30 years, Langston Hughes Library was run by you. There's only one you. Now, you have given the mantle over to the next person.
Right.
Are they repeating what you're doing? Are they fulfilling what you did? Are they keeping those programs? Are we getting the same type of energy that you exhibited then and still obviously have?
We are. I think that the platform is there for them to build on. Shakira Smalls is the new director. But she comes in at a time when we're coming right before the pandemic and the library has not been accessible. We have a new curator, Christine Zaret, who is an archivist and is developing the collections and activities. She has a lot of creative energy about what to do through that Black Heritage Center and using the Black Heritage Collection. Right now, we're waiting for the library to get back on track and then see what the impact is going to be of budget cuts. Because right now, you can only circulate a book and return the book. The library is not open for public service. So until we get to a point where the library is reopened and the community can come in and they can talk to the curator, they can talk to the director Smalls and talk about the kind of programs and activities they want, we're in a holding pattern. But I believe the framework is there. I'm not divorced from the library. I'm an advisor to Shakira. I'm an advisor to Christine. And they contact me when they want to talk some things through. I contact them when they come up with ideas. So it's really up to them, but the possibilities are there. I think both of them are open. Part of it depends on the schedule. The other part depends on what happens with the budget.
Well, I continue to be hopeful on that subject because Langston Hughes Library is a tremendous part of that community and its mainstay for the children, and they definitely need that. Yeah. I am going to ask you my final question, and this is a biggie. As a mentor and an educator, as a community leader, what would be your most poignant and admonishing statement to our youth that are listening as in what's happening in this country and picking up the mantle and moving forward and becoming the solid youth that we have to look forward to in the future? What words can you give to them?
I would say that they inherit the responsibilities that of the agendas that you and I had and others had in our community. They inherit the legacy that John Lewis left us, Martin Luther King left us, Malcolm X left us, Marcus Garvey left us. So they should read about those people and about their struggles, but they inherit the responsibility to keep the struggle going, because the struggle is not over. The struggle continues, but they have to understand what it is they want. They have to bring that generation of people together. The brothers and sisters on the street, the brothers and sisters who are in school, the brothers and sisters who are working, all of them have to come together and realize they inherit the responsibility to develop our communities, build our communities, but make us free. We are not free in this country yet. And whether they belong to Black Lives Matter, whether they belong to another program or club or church or organization, all of those organizations, when we were growing up, they interacted with each other. We used to
Yes.
have our own services at Corona Congregation of the Church, the Youth Fellowship,
That's
and
right.
the Black Panthers used to come to our church. The Black Panthers
That's
used to
right.
come to our church. We used to have the Black Panthers come and speak at our church. So we need to collectively come together as a community. Again, unity goes back to unity. And we are here to support them. We are here to assist them. We are here to help them understand the struggle and the legacy and what happened in the past. But they have to develop the agenda for a free, Black, liberated Black community, and they have to educate themselves on what that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he is here. I am going to open up the phone lines because while you were speaking, we actually tapped down the phone lines because it was crazy behind here, and we didn't want you to be interrupted. So we're going to open the phone lines for anybody who would like to ask a question or to speak with Sekou, or if you know him as Andrew, or both, because both of those are his names. So you can give us a buzz at 908-242-6234. I will keep the lines open for calls. If I don't hear anything in the next 5 minutes, I will shut it back down again. But as long as someone is on the line, I will keep the phone lines open so that you can speak with him, that you can ask questions. And are we calling out? Did we lose him again? We're actually trying to get that California person back again because they had called us.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
You're speaking
Hello.
with ESP Speaks.
It's Gary.
Hi, Gary. How are you? Gary, you're on with Andrew Jackson. Sekou Molefi. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say a couple of comments. Well, one, I definitely agree what he said about the Constitution, because I've always said the Constitution is not written for Black people.
Mhm.
You know, and people used to look at me like I'm crazy. So I completely agree with him on that. The other thing I wanted to say is that in the beginning, I think the TV show you were talking about was Tony Brown Journal.
Yes.
Right.
That's it.
Yes,
That's it.
That's it. Yep. See?
Yeah.
And it figures
So-
Gary. Andrew, Gary is our statistics person on one of our shows. If something is missing, Gary's going to find it. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate it. Wow.
Yeah, so, but unfortunately, we don't have anything like Tony Brown Journal anymore now.
They won't let it happen. They won't let it happen. They fought with Gil Noble. They fought with Gil Noble for
I
years
remember that.
to get him off the
I
field.
remember.
Right. So they don't.
Exactly. I remember.
Right.
I also wanted to talk about, in terms of Black economics. I was a part of a company, or I say an organization called Black Expo USA.
Right.
My uncle was one of the main people behind Black Expo USA.
Yeah.
And that, I'm sure if you remember it, throughout the late 80s, 90s, you know, we toured the whole country and partnered with a lot of corporate sponsors, but the main thing behind Black Expo USA was exposing small business.
Right. Right.
And one of the things that we used to do was have seminars to teach people, you know, economic literacy, financing, all those things that Black people need to learn how to do in regards to starting a business.
Right. Yes.
So, but unfortunately, we don't have nothing like Black Expo now anymore.
What you do have though, you have craft artists in the community, and they can conduct workshops in the library, the local library, and teach the children in the library the things that they do, making candles, making jewelry, the things that they can, handmade items, quilts and scarves and hats and all those things. All those can turn into a business. So that's the basic grassroots level of Black Expo. So we can do those things within our community if we don't have a major organization like Black Expo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so definitely. I just think that where we're at in 2020, obviously we could have been so much farther. But we definitely have to get back to that and having our people learn about opening up their own businesses and things like that. I mean,
opening our own business and supporting our Black business. That's the other part of it.
Right.
Now that translates into the fact that we still need to have major economic businesses that are countrywide, so that other people come to us for something. At this point, America comes to us for nothing. And that's,
well, see, part of what I did, outside of being in the entertainment industry, I spent a couple of years on Wall Street in investment banking. So, and I learned a hell of a lot with that. Whereas that, when it comes to money and high finance, a lot of people that look like you and me are not there.
Right.
That's true.
We're not in that circle.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things, so we have to get people not only in those levels, but also, since now there's the book and there's the internet, we need to have our people do research to learn about economics and high finance. Look, once you go to what you call it, one of the key books for Harvard Business School and Yale Business School is The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith.
Mm.
How many Black business people know that?
Yeah.
Like, that's how countries are run. Like, so it's like we need to also get into understanding those type of things and how things operate, so we know how to play the game. But a lot of us are not there yet and don't even know how to be there.
Right. And also the people who are there, the Black people who are working on Wall Street and working in these types of financial organizations, they have to remember where they come from and come back to the community, hold workshops and hold classes, go into the schools and talk to children, so that they remember they can see examples that I can be a high finance person because I was taught by one, or I met one in the school system. Marion Wright Edelman should say, you can't be what you can't see. Nobody but Black children
and giving back. Exactly.
Right.
That is
That's part
so
of their
poignant.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Look, one of my mentors is a gentleman by the name of Clarence B. Jones. Clarence Jones was one of the key lawyers for Dr. Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement, but also he was the first Black man to sit on the New York Stock Exchange. And I learned so much from him. So it's like we have to have that type of, when we can have mentorships like that can pass stuff down, then that's also things that we also have to be getting into and doing, where our elders can give back and also mentor.
Yeah. I think there's another elementary thing that we need to remember also. When we were growing up, I remember when I was a kid and I wanted to get my first pair of Converse sneakers. My father said, okay, look, because there were 5 of us, he couldn't just give me the $59, whatever Converse cost at that time. He said, if you want them, you work for part, you make part of it, doing the little chores and things, you make part of it. I will give you the other half and you'll get your sneakers. And that's how I got my first pair of Converse. Today, too much is going on with our families where the parents are giving their child everything. But the child doesn't work for anything.
That's it. But first of all, Andrew, your father did not. First of all, the Converses were not $69
whatever they were.
35 is more like it. And yes, I remember your father.
I still had to work and make the money.
You work for
That's right.
Yes. We had that work ethic.
Yeah.
They built that into us. You want something, you put in the work.
Right. I mean,
you talking about kids. We used to go shovel the snows. Remember, we used to shovel the whole neighborhood for the elderly people.
That's right.
We used to deliver newspapers. They're not doing that now.
Yeah. Look, you got kids that are 12, 13 years old with $500 iPhones.
Yes. And then $300 sneakers.
Did they work for them? No, they were given the money for it. No, that's not good enough.
See, that's as parents, gentlemen, as parents, that is our fault.
That's right.
because we have some
Right.
parents who say, well, you know, I wanted him to have a better life than I did. That didn't mean give away the whole damn farm.
Right.
And
right.
then you have other parents where I didn't have anything when I was growing up, so I bought it for him, and they're actually buying these things so they look
Right.
good, not necessarily so the kid looks good. So it's a whole big. We all have to take a responsibility in this, and we need to restructure and get things going and take responsibility for our communities and put things back together. And I see Rocky has pulled up the mic. The captain has pulled up the mic on the ship here. All right, we're gonna step back for a minute.
Andrew, this is one thing I want to mention, Andrew. That in the chat room, they're asking, could you list the books in the chat room? A bunch of people are asking.
Well, we're gonna
that you
type. I did
listed
say we're
earlier.
gonna type it
Yeah.
because he sent me the list. We just didn't type it
You
in.
just
So
have to type it in.
have them check back with us in about an hour or during the next hour once we close up the show,
Yeah.
because he actually did send the list,
Okay.
and we're gonna type them all in.
Is it in the email?
But we didn't get it. We didn't get it in the email yet.
Got you. Okay.
That's what we want. He knew.
What I will do is I will put my cell phone in the chat group, and people can text me, and I can text them some of this information as well.
You're a brave man.
I know. I'm worried about doing that, but
I was like, word.
Because Andrew, keep in mind that before we put this show on air at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, we were getting calls for you. So be careful. You put your cell phone in there, the whole world is going to start calling.
I will let. Then I'll leave the response. I gave you the list. I'll leave the response with ESP Speaks to get that information out. You can always put people in touch with me, and I can respond to them. But now let me say this also, what you were just talking about with the kids and parents, that goes back to the fourth principle of Kwanzaa, Ujamaa cooperative economics. So when you talk about the value of Kwanzaa, unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, faith, purpose, creativity, those principles, that's what I talk about, practicing those principles all year. So like Kwanzaa, anytime I give a gift, I give books. I may give them, so like my niece's birthday was last month. I sent her a check, but I sent her some books. She has her own library because I started giving her books when Mabel bought her off the airplane in a little little carrier. I gave her her first book of Black children's book stories, folk tales. So she's been getting books since she was baby. She's now 38 years old, 41 years old, something like that. She has her own library. Her daughter.
I can't believe she's that old already.
Her daughter. Dia is now turning 13. Dia has her own library because I keep sending her books about Blacks so she can learn on her own.
And I would like you to know that all of my children still have every book that you gave them, Andrew.
Cool. Good. That's why this library is here. This is my library. So yeah, that's our responsibility.
That's it. Okay. So Andrew. Oh wait, Gary, you have another question?
Well, I just wanted to make one more comment. Yeah, I guess there's a documentary and a book out by James Baldwin. Like he's another author that people can go and research and look up.
Yes.
I mean, people come to last year called, I think it was out of the last year or the year before called I Am Not Your Baby.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's an amazing, so I think I don't know, maybe that could be added to your list.
Yeah. It's in book form. It's in book form and it's in video form. You can go to YouTube and you can see that video. Now, YouTube is an incredible audiovisual library that you can go to and see slavery and the making of America, African Americans in America, anything that deals with the Black experience. You'll find YouTube videos that you can actually sit through and learn through, and then it'll just keep more and more will come up. So that's another wealth of information that's available while the libraries are closed.
Okay. That's it. But no, brother, you're definitely a wonderful wealth of information. Everything that you said, I definitely agree with. Keep up the excellent work.
Thank you. I was hoping we'd have somebody that I was hoping we'd have somebody that disagree with me so we could have a dialogue.
Okay, so gentlemen, call in. He wants somebody to disagree with him.
Yeah, come on.
Give him a
fight
run
with
for
me.
his money. I don't think at this stage people are going to you because you're speaking absolute sense right now, and we need to hear this. You fit so poignantly into this series, and I think you are adding a wonderful touch. So on that note, I'm going to ask you, what are your final words for your audience this evening?
My final words would be quoting from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who said, if a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile traditions, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world and stands in danger of being exterminated. And to me, that's the reason why we need to celebrate who we are. We need to learn who we are. We need to read about our history and culture, and we need to share it with our young people and pass that torch on to the next generation.
Well said. Well said. And we thank you so much for being with us this evening, Andrew. It was a joy and a pleasure. And I will actually create another show that you can come back, and I'll put somebody in the opposing seat so the two of you can go back and forth. How about that?
All right. Sounds good to me.
All righty. Thanks again so much. And ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to ESP Speaks, part of the Boardwalk Global Media line and the mega block of the lineup that starts on Friday nights at 6 p.m. with the Raw Perspective, at 7 p.m. with the Real Discussion with Rock Logic, Gary D, ESP, and Robin. And on Saturday mornings, once again at 10 a.m., you have the Fresh Start Focus with Tanya Hazelhurst Dawkins. At 6 p.m., you have the ESP Speaks, which is what you're listening to right now. And thank you very much for hanging with us. On Sunday at 7 a.m., you have the Morning Inspiration with Uncle Lays, followed by Pastor Leo and Pastor Dorothy at 8 a.m. at www.ihpfwc.org, or you can catch them on their Facebook page, which is IHP. Then again at 4 p.m. with Rock Logic, Sandrea Coleman, and Stan Morse for the One Night Show. And do look out for our next season, our upcoming shows, which will be the House of Pain with our martial arts trainer, Thomas Paine, and Hood Logic with our girl, Robin. And Rocky, the head of the Boardwalk Global Media, who sits in on my shows because he takes care of his little baby so intently. Are there any final words that we can hear from you tonight?
Yeah. I mean, just real quick, I'm gonna mention the fact that tomorrow's show, the One Night Show that starts at 4:00, we have oh my God, Rebecca. I forgot her last name, but she's running for city council. So One Night is starting to become that stop that a lot of politicians that are running are coming to because the audience has grown so big. So tomorrow we have Rebecca, and I forgot her last name, but she's coming on at 4:00. And then next week we have a Congresswoman that's already in, and that's Sandrea Coleman's hookup. And I mean, that's kind of what's going on. Next week, I mean, also the last Real Discussion show's coming up, right? Which is an anniversary show, which will be a culmination of everything that we've done over the past year. You know, and that's kind of it. You know, I mean, this show was a great show, by the way. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed, the information that he was giving, and it was just such a, it was a moment. He reminds me of John Malkovich, by the way. I just want to let you know.
Well, you never really have anything bad to say about my shows, but I'm glad that Andrew, because he impresses me my whole life. So I'm glad the two of you could, actually he could impress you.
Yeah, he was dope.
In talking about next week's show, because next week ESP Speaks is going to be a very special show. The theme of next week's show is the logical experience. And I am going to invite one of my other set of crew members to come on and hang out with me from the Real Discussion with Rock Logic, Gary D, ESP, and Robin. And we're going to be sitting and talking about, he doesn't know this, the career of Rock Logic.
Oh, this is
so it's the logical experience. Please do join us for that, because that's going to be an amazing, amazing show. So, Rocky,
hey.
Let's tie this up. Do we have our exit song all booted up?
Which one?
Let it rip, anyone you choose. Thanks for being with us. This has been a joy. Andrew, you've been amazing. Thank you for watching. And Rocky, say good night, dear.
Good night, dear.
Guess you didn't know. As I said, a story goes. Baby, now I got to know. 'Cause I know it from the start.